Welcome to For the Fan, Innovating the Business of Music. I am your host, Leah Kozin, FIMBA 2010. Go Bruins, it's good to be back. Today's panelists are Mag Rodriguez, CEO, founder, Even, Kenny Ochoa, SVP of Content at Splice, and Nikki Cox, Chief Marketing Officer for Red Bull Records. Thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's dive in. We're gonna kind of kick off with a big trend shaping the music industry right now. It's a buzzword, and that is the rise of the superfan. More than ever, artists and platforms are paying more attention to their most dedicated listeners, offering exclusive content and experiences, opening up new ways to monetize. For example, Spotify has announced their Music Pro tier coming up. It's gonna offer high quality audio, the ability to remix, early access to tickets, that sort of thing, all aimed at this higher tier of superfan that's just willing to pay a little bit more. SoundCloud has long had its fan-powered royalties, Audio Max supporters. There are also Web3 platforms that allow superfans to buy shares in songs they believe in. So just the list goes on and on. So Mag, as someone working kind of at the forefront of D2C, we're going to go to you first because I imagine the superfan is really important to your business. With all of these platforms embracing superfans as key revenue drivers, how can artists take advantage of these new monetization models? And we'd really love for you to get some color here, like any success stories that you've seen, case studies, as well as how artists can think about pricing all of these new plus-ups. Love to hear your thoughts.
No, thank you. I think the most interesting part about what's happening is everyone's talking about superfans like it's like a new consumer that just entered the market. Superfans have been here. They've been here since the beginning of music. I think the focus on it is so tied to this idea, or now the reality, that streaming has plateaued. We're reaching the ceiling. The next 100 million subscribers are going to be the most expensive, but also the hardest to retain.
Yeah.
We're noticing how emerging markets are not adopting streaming and the subscription model at the same way that these like tier one markets. So I think the opportunity around super fandom or super fans, it's more about globalization and this opportunity where there's fans from around the world that want to support and engage directly with their favorite artists, but also communities of other super fans. And the digital world has made that more accessible than ever before. I think we often forget too that 86% of artists on streaming platforms don't earn a single dollar from streaming. Mm-hmm. So this idea of direct to fans, super fans, and a lot of what we're doing at Even is really helping that emerging class or like middle class of artists monetize music in this new way. But in many ways, it's kind of the old school way.
Exactly. Selling out the trunk all over again.
All over again, yeah. But I think the opportunity and the way that we're viewing it is, just this morning, we highlighted a case study of an artist that has 600 monthly listeners on Spotify.
Okay.
Which means they're not making any money from.
Don't tell me they're making money selling to the people.
They are, yeah. They made $500 today.
Wow.
On the platform, and it was like from 10 fans.
Wow.
One of those fans paid $250. And the amazing part is like when you start looking at like who's actually paying, it's like immediate community, right? Mm-hmm. It's like friends, family, and maybe some engaging fans. But we often forget that like our first super fans are our immediate community. Mm-hmm. And this is an artist who's never made money from music before.
Wow.
Now, of course, we work with like bigger artists like, J. Cole or Jesse Reyes. Like those are incredible artists that are on the platform, but the opportunity for the bigger artists is completely different than the emerging artists.
Tell us more about that. I'm always curious. Like, is it more a tiering strategy?
Yeah.
Is it exclusive content? What does that look like?
I think with the more established artists, it's really about this opportunity that they see the opportunity more so of they want to bring fans to their world. They don't, J. Cole doesn't want to send his fans to third-party platforms anymore. Mm-hmm. He's at a position in his career where
he is the platform.
He is the platform. He has the reach. He's not on social media, but when he goes and he posts something, it's very, very loud. Mm-hmm. So for him, it's really about how do I bring them to me and my world? And now for the first time in his career, he can now own the relationship with his fans. So it's not really about money for an artist like J. Cole. It's more about owning that relationship, but also creating a safe space for his fans. Mm-hmm. There's so much noise on the internet. And his community has these like hundreds and thousands of fans who talk to each other every single day. There's fans from over 150 countries who, many of them for the first time, had the opportunity to buy something from J. Cole. Now, all of our releases, they're done in a pay-what-you-want model. It's normally what we recommend artists do. And what that allows is, it really allows fans to go above and beyond if they want to. Every day we see fans pay thousands of dollars for releases on the platform.
Wow.
I still don't really understand why, but it's
Not just for the look, you know, like clout is a thing and
Clout
recognition is a thing and it's valuable.
Yeah, but
it's
there
currency
is
now.
There's whales, right? Like you know, you look at other verticals like gaming, they're considered whales in the gaming space. 2% of gamers make up 40% of the revenue of the industry. Okay. And in music, it's the same way. 20% of fans make up 60% of an artist's revenue.
Sure.
So it's this idea that there's going to be consumers that want everything.
There always have been collectors.
100%.
Yeah, and super fans, like you were saying. Are you saying that it's more polarized? Like it's either the artists with 500 monthlies or 600 monthlies, and then the J. Coles? Or is there a middle class where this can work as well? Because I'm real interested in how do you scale D2C?
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, that's most of our business is the stuff in the middle. I get really excited really on the emerging side, like helping an artist make their first $50 or $100 is like what makes my day. And then of course working with the big superstars is always exciting, mostly for like brand. But I think the middle sector is really interesting. We have an artist, Mick Jenkins, who just he's the artist out of Chicago. He made, I think, I don't know if I'm allowed to like really disclose the numbers, but he made high 5 figures in revenue with a 5-song EP.
Wow.
And it was more than what he generated from streaming.
In 2025. It's possible.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting. In my prior life from before Splice, I was at Snapchat, and one of the biggest things we were doing was identifying artists that were bubbling under, and then bringing them in and giving them the tools to connect directly with their audience and engage them. So I brought in kind of influencers and so forth and within our community to be able to teach them, and then they were able to kind of go into our creator rev share program and start making money to sustain their career, so they wouldn't have to sign that deal or that publishing deal or whatever. And that was one of the prouder things I did there, was being able to kind of find them using data, give them the opportunity to learn how to engage.
Tool set.
Yeah, because a lot of times I'd get hit for, we need, can you playlist my song? And I'm like, yeah, but it's going to drop off unless they engage directly with their fan. We get out of it, right? So.
Yeah, it's really interesting. There are so many ways to define success in music now, right? Like it's proliferating rapidly. So, Nikki, let's zoom out for a second, and just in a general sense, what do you think superfans want? Like, how do they want to engage? Is exclusive content or experiences like early ticket access, is that enough? And then also on the contrarian side, I'd appreciate your take on, is there a risk in maybe leaning too far into superfans? Like, is there perhaps some danger for artists to become too reliant on that top 1%?
I think in terms of what superfans want, and fans generally, I think, do really want just a direct connection with the artist, and any way that they can offer some kind of closeness, some kind of direct conversation. I mean, there's a ton of platforms to do that now. Artists are doing it on Discord. There's artists who are giving their fans early listens to sneak previews of music, new music.
Even Spotify's facilitating it now.
Exactly. There are, Tate McRae was DMing fans on Instagram with sneak previews of her music and encouraging people to use a sound on TikTok. There's a lot of that kind of, you were saying clout is currency these days. Absolutely. And the super fans really want to know, they want early access, they want to be in the know. And then those people, are your greatest ambassadors. They're the ones that you want to go out and drive the word of mouth and tell their friends and say, look how cool this is, and I'm cool because I know, and spread that. So they're very, very valuable. But like you said, we've always had this in the music industry. We used to call them collectors in major label land. And it was about having product suites that really addressed those fans. They were the sort of high value fans who would spend $500 on a box set that, was a limited edition. We knew we could only sell 1,000 of them or something, or even 500, but they're high value customers. And so they're the people
It's like the modern version of
exactly. And now this is just how we do that in the digital framework. And I think it's given us so many new fun ways to do that, to really allow artists to connect directly. And there's so many creative ideas. I mean, even what Mag was referring to, there's a ton of things that artists can do to really engage their fans. And in the second part of the question, no, I don't think it's a concern to focus on those super fans because, as I said, they are the ones who are your biggest evangelizers, and they're out there kind of talking to people about anything that you're doing. They're sharing things on socials. But I do also feel that if you've got that part right, the casual fans and the discovery that happens underneath that, it kind of happens naturally anyway. So it is almost a great strategy to focus in on those people, but you have to get to a point where you develop up to a super fan. For some of the very developing emerging artists, even that we're working with, we're just in that discovery phase, and we're just trying to get the music out and expose the music as much as we can, so that we can work towards building a community that we can then turn into super fans. So it goes both ways.
I also just inherently have a concern about artist bandwidth, right? And even almost protecting their mental health, and how much access can you give, and how much can you replicate yourself? Will human fans really ever accept an AI replica? These are the weird thoughts I have. Am I the only one that has these weird musings? But
No, and we're dealing with that in the real world, honestly, in our day-to-day work and our conversations with our artists is about how to focus their energy and time so that they're not, it's a lot of demand on them at the moment, and a lot of them having to be everything to everyone. And sometimes, I mean, even just this week, I was having some conversations about staying focused on why you do what you do, and making sure that your art and the idea of connecting with your fans over your music is why you did this in the first place. And so to try to kind of take away some of that, the pressure of the digital social media landscape, and refocus on this is why we're doing this, and you can't do everything, so focus on what matters.
I love that. I think perhaps another solution moving forward is to, on the flip side, just really open up the collaboration and almost, I don't want to say outsource, but platform it in a way, which is kind of a segue into our next topic. Our next topic is really about how fans themselves are becoming more active in the creative process all around. But of course, there's growing number of accessible tools and platforms that facilitate this. The line between artists and fans is just becoming fuzzy, and it's getting fuzzier as we move forward. There's just a growing number of fans who aren't passively listening to music anymore. They're really helping to shape it. I mean, of course, TikTok facilitates this all the time, sped up and slowed down versions. Lady Gaga, for example, during her latest album rollout, she had an intimate event with her top 200 listeners at a Spotify warehouse and allowed them to ask her direct questions. This would be unheard of 10 years ago, They discussed her creative process and had the theories about her story arc and all kinds of fun stuff. But I'm sure we've also seen the There I Ruined It remixes on the internet. And if you haven't ran into one of these yet, you will, because they always go viral. But it's just this creator who takes music and flips it. He uses some kind of AI magic and changes it, in a fun or quirky way. It's just a fun way to interact with music and transform it, again, in a way that would have been impossible to do this 5 years ago. So the creative process is definitely getting more inclusive and accessible than ever. So Kenny, with tools like Splice, where you work, or BandLab, for example, that really empower fans and artists, because again, it's these definitions are getting a little murky, to just remix, collaborate, their influence official releases. How is this relationship between artists and their audience evolving? And in a larger sense, do you think this democratization of music is a net positive? We're already at the place where we have 100,000 tracks a day going on DSPs. We have AI coming online, right? So saturation. Is this gonna help or hurt professional musicians in the long run, would you say?
Yeah, good question, or questions. I think what's interesting is what Mag was talking about. You know, there's super fans everywhere. I was a super fan, but I didn't have that access or the tools to connect directly with, you know, my idols. And
You just made mixtapes.
yeah, it was like
all we
trying to get into the show or whatever, and that was kind of, you know, sitting in my car looking at, reading liner notes kind of stuff. Not to date myself too much, but I think nowadays you have platforms like Splice that the barrier to entry to create is zero. So it allows them to collaborate directly with their artists, with other fans and so forth. So whether it's remixing, it's crowdsourcing remixes, there's just so many different ways they can do that to really kind of engage. And I think there's this change from this kind of passive listener, as you're saying, to the more lean-in mentality of them going, I want to actually collaborate. I want to see how I can connect directly with this artist.
Yeah. Is that something that you're exploring at Even, like beyond finished music? Like, are artists thinking about, I don't want to say monetizing, but maybe, or offering it as some type of just engagement channel for fans to come in and actually influence the album itself?
Yeah, I mean, I think like Even as an infrastructure is really designed to do, you know, or to really provide the tools for artists to do whatever they want and engage with their fans however they want. Our joke is like fans show up for the music, but they stay for everything else. And some of I mean, we just kind of let artists do what they want. And then we just kind of pay attention and we're like, that was actually really interesting.
Yeah.
Like we have an artist by the name of Ransom. He's like your favorite rapper's favorite rapper type of guy. He did audiographs, which he should like definitely coin because the idea was, he comes from the DJ drop era. So he basically created a tier that if you pay over $100, you get a custom album intro. So basically there was all these fans that were paying $100 to basically get the intro to the album.
Wow.
With whatever they wanted to say. So
An interlude feature. Ooh,
yeah,
okay.
so he ended up selling like hundreds of these.
Yeah,
It's
of course,
incredible.
of course.
And then we have other artists. We did a release with Coda the Friend and Static Selecta. So Static Selecta is like a legendary producer. He gave away all the sessions files to the album. So it was also an opportunity at a very like, I think it was like $250. You get all the.
So you didn't give them away.
No, he didn't give them away. Monetized. But again, it's like fans, it offers an opportunity for producers. Producers are super fans, right?
Yes, they are.
They're investing money, time, and energy.
And there's a ton of them.
100%. So I think one of the big things that we're seeing is like, yes, the barrier of entry to create music is like at an all-time, you know, more accessible than ever before.
Sure.
But that's why we're seeing so much music come out of regions like Africa, India, Latin America, because going to the studio and like making a record was so expensive.
Right.
In a lot of these territories, it wasn't as accessible.
Yeah.
Now people can record records
On their phones,
and like
Band
next thing you
Lab.
know, it blows up.
Yeah.
I kind of try to refer to it as the Sex Pistols moment, right? When I was able to like see that someone could play music and you didn't have to go to school, you didn't have to go into a studio, you had to do that stuff. I could pick up a guitar
Totally.
and learn it. And I think with create and producing, there's so many tools that you can do that now.
Absolutely, 100%. Nikki, in your opinion, how can artists, kind of going back to, I don't know, guardrails, if you will, how can they balance like this, the need for creative control, of course, and staying true to their vision with this growing need to include their fans? Because like we're officially at an era in social where fans, it has to be a two-way street. Like you can't ignore fans anymore, and they want to be part of that creative process, and it really is critical for that superfan relationship.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways that artists can do this that, you know, that are right for their comfort level. And I think, you know, there's a couple of ideas, including, you know, artists who are using TikTok as A&R almost, where they sort of, they know, and also record labels, you know, we've always sort of chosen the singles, or the artist has chosen the singles with us, or they've come in and said, this is my song, this is the one. But now often that selection process is being handed over to the fans, and you know they can put sort of 3-4 sounds up on TikTok and ask the fans what they think, and or they can just put them up and see which ones are having the most organic growth and how many creates are happening, and is there chatter about a lyric or a, you know, and they're being led by what's happening once you put the music out there in the space of social media. So I think that's one way to do it. There's not, it really comes down to what the artist is comfortable doing, because really, there's more than one way to approach it. And I think there is so much opportunity depending on how involved the artist wants their fans to be.
Yeah.
But there is that sort of illusion of input as well. If you kind of put 3 songs out there that they're all going to be singles at some point, but the fans get this feeling of like, oh, we're a part of the process and we get to choose and we're voting on it. There's polls and we're creating and we're actually a part of the movement.
Sure.
And also there's that community of the fans with each other talking about the songs and talking about the artist and their preferences and stuff. So it's fun. Like I said, it's a really fun time for artists.
Yeah, I really love what you said about keeping a pulse and like listening, because it's true. Like we live in a world where now you can create a different version of the album on the fly or a different version of the song on the fly. So yeah, it's important to listen and just be market responsive for sure. Right. Well, let's shift gears here for our last segment and move into sort of right brain territory. We'll tackle a more creative topic. And that is this idea of the rise of visual storytelling and world building. So, of course, music has always been a storytelling medium, and some visual storytelling isn't like a new thing. In fact, if anything, we can think of it more as a resurgence, because music very much used to be this way a lot. I mean, Thriller and The Wall and all of that. We see artists now, Beyonce, Taylor, creating really immersive visuals, cinematic, expanding on their album themes. And I also think that YouTube is playing a big part here in the rise of visual storytelling. YouTube, 25% of content on YouTube is music, and that was from 2019, so it's arguably more now. YouTube's head of music, Lear Cohen, is really bullish on the music video, making a comeback. He has been recently saying that their fastest growing screen is the living room. And YouTube Music itself is the fastest growing DSP right now. So I think that's definitely contributing to this rise of visuals. We also just live in a more visual world, right? Like social media is nothing but video now. And even those platforms are starting to lean in more on longer form content, moving away from the 15 seconds. So there's just more room for artists to tell stories, to tell interconnected stories, and build those worlds. So Mag, with this kind of resurgence of cinematic music videos, visual albums, and the like, how do you think artists can craft worlds that really resonate with audiences? And again, we'd love, case studies or success stories. Like, are you seeing innovative ways that artists are bringing this to life, innovative ways they're monetizing it?
Yeah, I mean, I always think about world building as not the extreme. I think I think tech always goes too far into the extreme.
VR headset, yeah.
VR headsets, and we're gonna build these metaverses.
Yeah.
I think we will get there in time, and
Yeah.
there's great people that are working in that space that if you haven't been into one of those worlds,
Like my kid would love to go to Opium World, right? For sure.
but it's still early. I like to think about it in more practical ways. I think one of my favorite case studies is La Russell. So Bay Area artist. He was actually our first artist on the platform, and being able to see him build this world that can be digital, right? He has the digital space that's called In Good Company. And essentially it's like a monthly subscription where you can opt in through Even, and it's pay what you want, so you can pay whatever you want, and you can change your price every month. But he has 500 songs that he gives away, tons of video.
Wow.
But then he leverages YouTube. Most people know La Russell as the individual, not so much for his music, but he does a really good job at just opening the world to who he is, his community. He'll go and partner with a sandwich shop and say, all right, everyone can come and eat at this place for free today.
Wow.
Post it on social media.
Got
and
it.
I think that's the world building that we're seeing people do. And then there's other artists like Jacob Banks out of London, who just recently released a 3 album or 3 EP cycle, where it's there was a world that he was painting digitally, or sonically, I should say.
Okay.
He's the artist with the capital A. He's not gonna do a custom album intro. He just put a beautiful, body of work together that you can kind of experience.
Okay.
So I think to me that's always more practical than not every artist can be Travis Scott and go get a couple $1 million from Fortnite,
Right.
But I think there's ways that everyday artists can do it. And that's, to me, is what I like to focus on, is like, how can I tell an artist, like, this is something that you can start doing today with your phone, with your immediate community, and start to monetize it in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also it really does hinge on an artist having a very specific brand and staying really true to that brand. The lingo, like building a tribe, if you will, the mores and the norms of that space really carry through. And I think it's something that even emerging artists can tap into. Kenny, that was my question for you, is how like emerging artists can compete here? Because of course, yeah, the Travis Scotts, the Beyoncés and Taylors can afford big cinematic visuals and VR concerts, but are there more accessible ways that emerging artists can still leverage world building or visual storytelling?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've talked a lot about it, is just their connection to the artist. I mean, connection to their fans directly.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like it's more intimate storytelling versus spectacle, right? 'Cause back in the day, it was always like throw as much drivers at it as possible, as opposed to creating a connection. And like whenever I hear a song, I now go immediately to their YouTube to find out more, right? And then that's where that storytelling, you start to build that connection with that fan.
I love that, because sometimes when we think about world building, we picture this big, it has to be so grandiose or digital.
How
right?
big can we
But
make
like
it?
Tiny Desk is a thing. Like
Yeah.
intimate performances is a way to build a world, if you will.
And when I was managing artists and stuff, it was always like, they were like, I need that hit song, that top 40 song. And I'm like, yeah, but you're going to probably lose about that majority of fan base you spent years that are going to stay with you, right? Because of your storytelling.
Yeah,
Because of your connection with them.
the consistent through line.
Yeah. So I think it's super important to obviously stay true to your authenticity, but also to connect directly through storytelling and more intimate storytelling, as opposed to just trying to, we have that power now, because before, it was reliant on, certain drivers that ran radio and MTV and stuff like that back in the day, where now you can be super creative and do what's authentic to you as an artist with your fans, versus kind of those like plug-in type of promotional things we used to do in the past.
The walled garden. Love that. Well, that concludes our main panel. Thank you so much. This has been a really insightful discussion. Appreciate you guys lending your expertise.
Thank you.
And before we take questions, I did want to just do a quick roundtable, rapid fire, 60 seconds each. What is your number one piece of advice for young professionals or creators getting into music? Mag.
I think just remember your why. I think, it's something that I try to remind myself every day. Like it's so easy to get caught up in the noise of the industry.
Yeah.
And you can go in so many different directions.
That's exactly it. It's the lack of focus can kill you for sure.
Yeah, just remembering the why, I think it's, really important, I think, for me. And it's something that I tell my staff all the time. It's like,
Staying
remember
grounded, staying anchored.
why you do what you do. We work in music, and it's a privilege and an honor, and it's something that you never own. You just rent it every single day. So it's really important to just be a good person. I think, to me, that's kind of like the key.
Love that. Kenny?
Yeah, very similar to that. I think it's your gut, right? Always just trusting your gut. I think many years you get into corporate environments at different places and you start trying to figure out that path. And I realized like every time I followed my gut and my passion, I kind of always went in the right way. And when I tried to like change myself for certain types of either positions or whatever it was, it never was authentic and I never excelled at it.
Authenticity is the key. Love that. Nikki, your number one piece of advice?
I would say don't be scared to experiment, because music marketing has completely changed in the last 5 years, and things that we did as standard or that were sort of a baseline formula to kind of that we knew if we did these sort of 5 to 10 things, we'd be okay.
It would work, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't work anymore. And so everybody is experimenting. And I think just having great ideas that you can execute quickly it's what everybody is doing in the industry right now. And so I think people who are coming into the industry, thinking about what you can offer that's unique, how you can think of something, execute it quickly, bring it to market really quickly, and just try a bunch of stuff because honestly, that's all we're all doing.
Being agile and being very experimental is the key for sure. Well, do we have any questions? Open it up.
Hello, my name is Jenny Pulido, and I am founder and producer at La Ñ. First of all, Mag, this question's for you, but so glad to see you on this stage. Te lo mereces. By the way, also thank you for putting me on to La Russell. Been a fan ever since, and that is a phenomenal case study by far. My question is, are more Spanish-speaking artists getting even? And if so, which genre?
Well, shout out Jenny. She actually brought us our first Latin artist to even like 2 years ago. But yeah, I think it's actually one of our fastest growing markets on the platform. We did a pretty high profile release last fall with this artist by the name of Fariana out of Colombia, formerly known as Farina. And it was really interesting to see, we introduced regional pricing with her, where you can do pricing based on a country. So she set up pricing in 22 countries. So fans in Colombia paid a different price than the ones in Mexico, in Chile, Brazil, US, etc., in their native currency, in their native payment methods. And that just drew the attention of different, primarily artists and labels. We partnered with labels first. So a lot of the labels that we were already working with were actually, we have all these Latin artists that we want to try this with now. So we actually have some really exciting, high-profile Latin artists releasing on the platform this quarter that we're really excited about. But yeah, we have now thousands of artists we have 8,000 artists that are joining the platform every day, and about 15% of them are coming from Latin America.
Awesome. Just yell at us, we can hear you.
Hello? All right, cool. Hi, my name is Jared Olua. I do custom hip-hop for sync licensing, TV and film. And my buddy, Coach Cody, did a song. So it's a testament to even, because La Russell hopped on the song, and he said, look, if anybody wants this song, it has to go even first before it goes to Apple, Spotify, and Tidal. And so people were able to buy in, a testament, to what you said, a pricing point. People gave $25, $100 and stuff like that. So it brought a more personal thing and a branding to it. And so I love the platform that you're doing. I don't know how long you started, but where you're going now, I love to see the trajectory. And thank you for being here.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you all for being here. My name is Grant. I'm a first year in the full-time MBA program. You shared a lot of just incredible stories of artists connecting with their fans and really building these communities. Are you able to also share maybe some of the challenges with that, and maybe some instances where an artist tried to make that jump and it didn't really resonate, or there were some issues, and how they were really able to pivot and potentially fix that, or how when you come across some of those challenges of building a community, you can really kind of grow or evolve from that?
That's a great question. Or does it always work? Wow.
No, I mean, I'm trying to think of specific examples, but I would just say we fail more than we succeed. And that's what I was saying about that experimentation piece. It's we're trying a whole lot of different things. And even just on social media, the conversation I was having with these artists earlier in the week about don't be discouraged. You've got to kind of trust the process. And we have a strategy in place, a content strategy for a reason. And what we're doing right now, we need to just keep executing and see what works and what doesn't work. And it's really, especially from a content, there's a lot of artists out there trying to figure out how to break through the noise on TikTok and Instagram and all the other platforms.
Just keep swinging.
And it's you've just got to keep making content.
Just keep
and
posting.
Something is going to hopefully have a little spark.
It's a numbers game, yeah.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that if you do that same thing again a second time, it's going to work. So it is a frustrating journey for some artists to be on, but then some kind of start to find their groove, and then you can see them get excited about it, and then they kind of go after it, and all of a sudden it's not about us pushing a strategy. It's they start to see what works, and they start to understand their audience, and they start to think of more creative ideas. Totally. And so that's that's just from a social media point of view, but yeah, it is just at this point, especially with how cluttered it is on TikTok and Instagram, it's just about trying to to break through and find that spark moment, and then hopefully you have people behind you who know how to make the most of that moment.
Love that. Experimentation and persistence, yeah, is definitely key. And there's like not taking failures along the way too personally, because there are so many factors that are beyond our comprehension even, or beyond our control that come into play. And so, yeah, you just got to keep swinging.
And I think there's like traditional things like, publishing and different things that like maybe you have relationships with bigger companies that see things differently. And so you really got to push your passion and your agenda as far as, getting past some of those barriers from the old stuff. Like, some publishers don't want to give stuff away for free because they're protecting their copyrights, but you want to connect with your audience, so you might do something more promotional. And I always say it must be more tangible, show that tangible promotion to your partner. So I think, there's some barriers, but I think in this day and age, there's no rules. There's no
right and wrong. And it's also, the beautiful thing about music, as opposed to perhaps some other forms of media, is just the longevity of it. Like, maybe something isn't an immediate success, but look at that Kate Bush song from Stranger Things. Like, it charted 30 years later, so you just never know.
Yeah.
You definitely got to keep swinging.
I think it's also important to like set realistic expectations around, I can't think of a single like direct-to-fan campaign that we launched that I would think was a failure.
Right.
Because we always lead with the expectation that, are you ready to pull back the curtain? The moment you start to try to build a community, you're going to see really what's behind the other side. You can buy followers, you can do marketing for streaming. You can't pay to have a community.
That's right.
So I think I always lead with teams. I'm like, are you ready for what's on the other side?
Because this is as real as it gets.
This is as real as it gets,
Yeah.
yes.
Any other questions? Okay, a few more.
I have a two-parter, I guess. First, we talked about artist bandwidth, and I'm wondering if there are things that artists, especially developmentals, can do specifically to engender super fandom. And then I'm also thinking about it just because it's been on my mind this week, but twice in 2 years, Skrillex has dropped surprise albums without any really traditional label marketing support. And I'm wondering what leaning into super fandom means for the dynamic between the artist and the business ecosystem in helping them develop a channel that ultimately the artist owns at the end of the day.
Great question.
Well, I think that only superstar level artists can do surprise drops at this point. And so it's really nice for that type of artist who has spent decades building up their career and their fan base to be able to do that and create excitement and online chatter. For other developing artists, that's not really an option. Can you remind me the first part of your question?
Like to actually stimulate it.
A lot of what we're doing at the moment is making sure that we're bringing the online and the digital experience into real life. And I think that's really important for artists to remember, because all of these platforms give you an incredible opportunity to reach fans all over the world who you wouldn't usually be able to even know were into your music. And it's really important to be talking to them in those ways. But I think the piece that we're also starting to remember is that there's, especially Gen Z, are craving human connection. And I think bringing it into the real world however you can, even if you can't be in every place to do like fan meetups or little performances, like it doesn't matter what level you're at. You can say, I'm going to be in this park today at 2 p.m. in my city. I'm going to play some songs, come and sit and like hang out or something like that. Or you could do something with physical media where you're sending letters to fans, or you're doing video messages. You can still use it as an online platform, but with a tangible kind of human connection element. And I think that we're really trying to remember that element at this point, because I think that we're all living in this world in our phones, and it's really nice to remember that we're humans and that music is about connection, and I think that's really important in the marketing.
You're here. All right, well, we are at time. Thank you guys so much.
Oh, thank you.
Time for lunch.